In Matthew 28, Jesus says, "Go therefore into all the world and make disciples," or disciple makers. A lot of times when I talk to people about being involved in the disciple-making process, they say either in one way or another, "God can't use me." I'll never forget a few years ago here in Dallas, I was training a group of about 40 men one evening in making disciples. And once we got them all trained and they got their book that we'll show you in a week or two, uh, this one man, this businessman, was lingering in the back of the room. Everybody was leaving. And finally, he came up to me, and very sharp, smart, successful businessman. He came up to me and lowered his voice, and he said, "John, I can't do this. I can't do this." So what? He said, "This disciple making, I don't think I'm ready for it. I can't do this." So let me ask you a question. Can you read? He looked at me and he started laughing. He said, "Yeah, I can read." I said, "Well, get out of here and go make disciples." So he left. About 3 or 4 months later, I was at one of my favorite Greasy Spoon breakfast places, and I'm there with a couple guys, and we're just visiting, and I see this gentleman that I had just mentioned that said, "I can't do it," walking towards me. And he's got two guys behind him, like little ducks following the mama, and he comes up to the table and he says, "Do you remember me?" And I said, "Well, sure, I remember you." He said, "Do you remember what you told me at that meeting?" And I said, "Sure, I do." I said, "Why don't you tell my friend?" So he told the story. And then he looked at me and he said, "John, this whole disciple making process has changed my life." A lot of people feel that God can't use them, that they just simply can't do it, or they're not qualified, or they've compared themselves to other people and don't feel like they're up to it. There's a great passage of scripture in 1 Corinthians chapter number 1, verse 26, where Jesus, through the Apostle Paul, talks about the kind of people that he uses. Listen to this. "For look at your own calling as Christians, my brothers. You don't see among you many of the wise according to the world's judgment, nor many of the ruling class, nor many from the noblest families. But God has chosen," here it is, "but God has chosen what the world calls foolish to shame the wise. He's chosen what the world calls weak to shame the strong. He has chosen things of little strength and small repute, yes, even things which have no real existence, to explode the pretensions of the things that are, that no man, that no woman may boast in the presence of God." Those are the kind of people God has used in the past and will continue to use in the days ahead. So let me read a little thing here for you as we close today. The next time you feel God can't use you, just remember Noah was a drunk, Abraham was too old, Isaac was a daydreamer, Jacob was a liar, Leah was ugly, Joseph was abused, Moses had a stuttering problem, Gideon was afraid, Samson had long hair and was a womanizer, Rahab was a prostitute, Jeremiah and Timothy were too young, David had an affair and was a murderer, Elijah was suicidal, Isaiah preached naked, Jonah ran from God, Naomi was a widow, Job went bankrupt, Peter denied Christ, the disciples fell asleep while praying, Martha worried about everything, the Samaritan woman was divorced more than once, Zacchaeus was too small, Paul was too religious, Timothy had an ulcer, and Lazarus was dead. So what in the world is your excuse? You think about that.